Hey everyone, in today's session, I want to talk about testing AI agents. A testing and evaluation framework is a product manager's tool for navigating non deterministic behavior in AI agents. As you know, AI agents don't behave deterministically. Even small changes in prompts, knowledge bases, or flows can cause unexpected behavior. The behavior can drift over time. There can be inconsistent user experiences or hallucinations or skipped steps. Testing will give the product manager control over the behavior of the AI agent. The product manager can define what a good behavior looks like. You can catch regressions instantly, something that was working perfectly suddenly stopped working, things like that, and then ensure reliability before shipping. um, there are multiple changes that could affect the behavior of the AI, of your AI agent. For example, you may switch to a new large language model, the first version, the latest version of a model. You will most likely update the knowledge base documents. For example, if you are creating a dashboard from some requirements documents, you may have a new requirements document. If you are creating customer support agent from an HR policy document, there might be a new version of the HR policy document, things like that. So knowledge base could change. You may make some minor adjustments to the prompt for some new capabilities. So those things could change. So when such change happens, how do you make sure that you maintain trust in the large language model powered experience? And you maintain trust with your customers by using a testing and evaluation framework. These are sometimes called AI tests or evals, evaluations. I'm using all those terms synonymously. Testing AI agents is different from testing traditional software. Traditional acceptance testing for a software is very deterministic. It'll say when this happens, this must happen, or this exact phrase should appear, or this exact behavior should appear. And if it doesn't happen, then it is a strict pass or fail condition. Whereas AI agent testing is different. You're testing for behaviors, not literal sentences or literal words. Instead, you're looking for semantic correctness. Did the agent do the right thing? And in an example that I'm going to take briefly, I want the agent to collect the user's name and then start addressing the user by their name. That's a general behavior. I'm not going to worry about exactly how the AI agent did that. Um, you also want to check for flow consistency across many variations. For example, did the agent call the right tool, or did the agent delegate to another sub agent at the right time, for the right reason, and so on. And then finally, guardrails and boundaries, what the agent must not do. If you had instructed the agent to not do something, for example, don't search the internet, did it not search the internet? Or if somebody asked a question that it could have gotten an answer for from the internet, did it say, I don't have access to the internet? Things like that. So the main insight is testing agents is about validating intent, not matching precise text. So how will we write a simple test? So here is an example of a simple behavior test. First, you start with the goal of the test. In this case, and I will show a demo in a minute. In this case, the goal of the test is agent must ask for the user's name before starting the training. So in this case, the agent is a is a coach, and coach that is testing the knowledge of a cafe's menu, um, and making sure that the new waiters understand the menu and can articulate the menu very well. So that is the context. So before it starts that training, it should ask for the user's name. And the second point in the structure is context setup. I'm setting up the context. The first, the agent will say, "Are you ready to get started? For this training," and the user will say yes. And then the immediate expected behavior is the next agent reply should request the user's name. And then I'm giving some success examples and some failure examples. For example, the agent could say, "Before we start, could you tell me your name?" Or, "I'd like to know your name first." You could add multiple examples like that. And failure examples are not asking the user's name, or skipping the name question, and or simply starting the training without asking for the name, and so on. So now that we understand the structure, let's go and look at a real world example of an AI agent and the test. So I picked 11 labs for building the agent and building the test, and running the test. Um, let's start by looking at let's start by running the test first and see how the test is run, and then we'll look at how I built the test. So I'm going to run this test called ask for username. That's the name of the test. And so run this test. So when I run this test, what the application, in this case 11 Labs, is doing is it is it is providing the AI agent that I created, my agent. I'm calling it the cafe menu agent. It's calling the cafe menu agent, providing the context, and then asking it to provide a response. And then once it provides a response, it is then checking to make sure that it passes the test that I created. So let's look at this one. Ask for the username. So here, as you can see, the agent has passed the test. The evaluation result is on the top. The agent successfully met the goal by asking for the user's name with the phrase, "Could you please tell me your name?" before proceeding with the assessment. So this is the context. It provided it with the context. "Thanks for joining the cafe team as a waiter. Are you ready to test your knowledge of the menu?" And then the user, in this case, the new hire, the waiter who has been hired to the cafe, said yes. And then the agent then responded, "Great. Before we start, could you please tell me your name?" So that means the agent has passed the test. Now let's go back and edit the agent and remove this in the prompt, just to show that the test can fail. So here I'm saying, "Greet and ask for the user's name. Do not proceed until the name is provided. Once you hear the user's name, greet them by their name and do the following." So I'm going to remove this and save this agent. In other words, I have modified the system prompt. And then let me come and run the test again. Ask for user's name, run the test again. And because I changed the prompt, it should fail the test. Yeah, so it did fail the test. Ask for user's name. So evaluation is the agent failed to meet the goal because it began the assessment scenario without first asking the user's name, and so on. So let's go back and change this. I changed the prompt again and saved it. And come back to the test and run this test again. Ask for user's name. So now it should pass the test. Now this is obviously a very simple example, somewhat straightforward example of running a test. Product managers that I know usually do this manually. It's called vibe testing. You just run the agent, ask it, and then check to make sure that this is done. That is okay, but it's not always reliable. There is human error. There is no record of what was done, and you cannot run multiple tests like that. And what if you have to run the tests, say, several times a week? What if you have to run tests on 50 or 100 agents, or thousands of agents in the future? So having writing an evaluation, writing a test helps you um, run these tests in a systematic, reliable, measurable, auditable manner, and run them at scale as well. Here is a simple thing. Now we ran one test, so that looked pretty simple. What if you have to run multiple tests? So, for example, I'm in this agent, and I made some changes to my knowledge base, and I have, let's say, 6, 7 tests that I want to run. You can simply run all the tests, and in this case, 2 tests. Ask for username, and the second test is called brief response text. The brief response test is when a user explains or answers the question about the menu. Let's say somebody asked for coffee, what coffees do you have, and it answered. I wanted the agent's response to be very brief, not not very verbose. So that is what I tested for. So let's see if that, what if it passed the test. Yeah, it did pass the test. The response provides an ideal example of what to say to a customer without explaining the rationale behind why it's a good example. In other words, don't just keep on talking for minutes. Just keep your answer brief. That was my test. And obviously, the first test was ask for username. It passed the test as well. So behind the scenes, let's see what happened behind the scenes here. So what happened behind the scenes is the Eleven Labs AI agent. What Eleven Labs did was, it called the AI agent that I built, and it asked the AI agent. It gave the AI agent the context and asked the AI agent for a response. And once the AI agent gave a response, it then gave that response to another evaluation agent, evaluator LLM, which is a different LLM, and asked that LLM to judge this answer. So this is called LLM as a judge process, and you'll hear this quite often. Your engineering colleagues and product colleagues will talk about this. And then if it pass that if it pass that evaluation, then that test will be considered a pass, and if not, it'll be considered a failure. So that is what happened behind the scenes. As you can see, it's a 3-step process. The product manager first configures the test, provided the goal, set the context, define the success criteria, failure criteria, provided some examples of success and failure, and then executed the test. Obviously, the agent has configuration, system prompts, tools, knowledge base, other settings like temperature, and so on. And then the LLM responded with the behavior. Then the evaluator LLM, which is the judge LLM, then evaluated that behavior and said whether the agent passed or failed the test. So this is a very important part of AI product craft. Every product manager should know how to write a test. Every product manager should know how to run a test. And every product manager should include tests as part of every AI agent that they produce. What I showed is an example of a conversation agent. Now, similar tests can be built for other non conversational AI agents as well. The design of those tests will differ from the design of these things, but it is important to understand that. And finally, Eleven Labs is a good tool to try these things out, to understand how to build these things. And the Land Level Labs has done a pretty good job of providing a good interface to build these tests, run these tests, and understand how to, and even made it easier for product managers to, and even engineers to understand the concept of testing, and get better at testing. I hope that helps.